Have you ever felt the desire to stop and analyze what is happening around us? Sometimes you want to understand the reasons for your ups and downs, to evaluate your priorities, objectives, goals, methods, and investment to achieve them. Life can be challenging, and achieving the desired goal can often be disappointing when what you actually achieve turns out to be different from the results you were expecting. Sometimes in this crazy race of modern life, we don't have time to consider why this is, or the reasons seem set because they were taught to us by our parents or teachers. And we never questioned those reasons because we respect those people, and the thought that they could be wrong never even occurred to us. Sometimes people never escape this pattern and never truly discover their surrounding world. Nowadays, virtually any information we desire is available to us, and people still can't seem to solve the existing problems. Even though the world's challenges are obvious, people don't even have time to build a consistent plan for addressing them. As the author of this project, I want to propose you join me on a little journey through which you will easily come to understand the following. What is the reason for creating Project ENEBRA, and what is it for? What are the specific goals of the project? Review and study of the advanced technologies that the project is based on. Presentation of the ENEBRA project. The concrete and step-by-step plan for successful project implementation. Overview of the possibilities of the social network. How can you become a project member, and how can you explore your interests? What can we expect when this project is fully implemented? To understand was the reason for creating Project ENEBRA. You should spend some time exploring the interesting and informative documentaries intended for viewing with friends and family. In my opinion, those movies show us the root of the problems that hold us back from the continuous development and prosperity of human society and the planet itself. It is gathered in the section Informational Part. I will briefly focus on the major block of the section and explain why I offer the films to your attention. The film Home. It is the result of the common oeuvre of the worldwide popular photographer Yann Arthus-Bertrand and the stage director Luc Besson. Without any overestimation, this film could be named as a world-class documentary film. For the creation of this film, Yann Bertrand flew over the whole of our planet. In the movie, it showed the whole beauty of our planet, and it is shown as a complete living organism that is home for all living beings around us. Yann did not avoid paying his attention also on the consequences of human activity in the form of scars on the surface. I am sure that this film will not leave you indifferent. I added it for your understanding of what is truly our common home. Thrive. It is a consistent investigation of Foster Gamble, the hereditary inheritor of Procter & Gamble Company. It brings the light on a real system of mankind management. Many times I re-watched the film and checked the facts from it. I could not find direct proofs for some of them, but most of them are confirmed by my own life experience. It is exactly the film that motivated me to start searching for an effective and real mechanism which could help to stop those processes of destruction shown in the film, because I find the offer by the author plan as not effective enough and unclear. The Light Bulb Conspiracy. The author is Cosima Danoritza. It is a film about planned obsolescence, its reasons and consequences. I understood, due to this film, that laid in the foundation of our economy, market relationships are irretrievably outdated and not able to stop wasting limited natural resources of our planet. It leads to a rough resources crisis on this earth in the end. Cowspiracy. The authors are Kip Anderson and Keegan Kuhn. The film is about helpless international human rights protection organizations and the impact of industrial animal husbandry on the planet ecology. Inefficiency of existing international human rights and environmental organizations at the level of Greenpeace impressed me the most. Millions of people around the world make completely useless donations, expecting the real job that such organizations are supposed to do. On the Beach. The author is Russell Mulcahy. It is a slightly protracted television film of 2000. This film made me think about real causes of nuclear weapons' existence on Earth. Because no one, even the richest and the most powerful person on Earth, can guarantee safety to himself, to his family and children. It is impossible to guarantee that their lives will never change forever if someone presses the nuclear button because of any reasons, or due to stupid technical or program failure. If there is a gun, it will certainly shoot sooner or later. The DNA Journey. Created by director Jeppe Ronde for the project Momondo, The Journey of DNA. It is a brief video that breaks the stereotype about purity of a race. You have more in common with the world than you might think. This video reminds about the times when people could freely move through our planet. It also reminds how modern masters of life impose to us and our children false patriotism to our countries. They change and distort historical facts for their own interests. That is why we forgot that we are unified humanity of the planet Earth. Citizen 4. Documentary film by Laura Poitras. This documentary movie makes us to think how anonymous our life is in reality, and who owns the information about our any step. For what purpose we pay taxes for maintenance of various intelligence security services from which we try to hide ourselves. It is not logical, at least, because on the black market, it is possible today to acquire any detailed database with any information you need. Who instilled in us the idea that we have to hide from each other, and for what reason? Aaron Russo interview. Alex Jones's documentary. I really like Aaron Russo because he tells only about events that happened in his own life, and he does not make any additional conjectures and conclusions. Not any person is able to speak with people who stay on the top of richness and power. Especially, it is not easy to get answers from them about their plans and what they think about. This brief interview helps to understand that plans of common people and financial elite are radically opposite. We should not expect solving of our daily and important problems from them. The True Cost. Documentary by Andrew Morgan clearly shows what daily advertising and different marketing injections do to us. What price humanity and our planet should pay for implanting cult of consumption. The film displays how the bound in front of us, a marketing candy, makes people to spend their lifetime for something that is not possible to achieve and not really important. It shows how this endless racing destroys quite limited natural resources and pollutes our planet, which also causes endless illness for humanity. Speech at the United Nations of the Canadian girl Seven Kulis Suzuki. This short video, released 24 years ago, clearly confirms the absence of effectiveness and efficiency in existing control systems. From the rostrum of the UN, thousands of people pronounced similar speeches. But the situation hasn't improved yet. But it is rapidly becoming worse, and people continue to hope naively that the fervent speeches and brilliant rulers are able to change the world for the better. I selected about 30 films for the informational section. I've watched each of them several times. This combination of video materials allowed me to deeply and complexly understand the real processes that happen in human society, to estimate the value of these processes on our development and ecosystem of the planet. Due to the films, I defined a diagnosis, and only then I was able to create a cure. Do not neglect watching the video materials. You can see everything from another point of view, even if you have seen them before. Do not deny them because you don't agree. They really have many contradictions and misconceptions. Try to get only useful information from them. Main goal of ENEBRA project: to create conditions when each person will be needed and important for society to increase effectiveness of spent lifetime of each person on the planet, to create conditions that motivate people to effectively use quite limited natural resources and save other forms of life in the ecosystem of our planet. It is not a complete list of possibilities this project will give to us. It is limited only by fantasy and intellect of a human. Everything above looks more like a desirable dream than a possible reality. But the project gathered all parts of already existing systems and uniquely united technologies, which went from projects to real working systems and are fully used today in all countries of the world. I will demonstrate during the presentation how to achieve the goal above. Review and study of the advanced technologies that the project is based on. This is the most boring part of the presentation, but unfortunately you will not completely understand the working principle of the whole project without it. This part of the presentation is designed for people who are indirectly familiar with the digital world. That is why I will not delve into the details of the technologies. I will try to explain major principles of their working, which are necessary for the project, without specific terms. I will try to make for specialists deeper analysis later, with showing examples of routing schemes, with the distribution of network load, possibilities of distribution, and saving big sizes of data, examples of programming code, etc. So let's start. Technologies. Hash sum. We live in an era of digital technologies. We are surrounded by familiar mobile phones, computers, laptops, and tablets. These devices help us to talk to each other at a distance, to send and receive emails, to watch photos and videos. All this information is given as independent files, which is possible to create, to save, to send and delete. Each file in its basis is a sequence of bits. A bit is a minimal unit of information, measuring in binary system of calculation, which is able to receive only two types, 0 or 1. That is why all earlier mentioned technologies are called digital. The size of a file depends on the amount of these zeros and ones. The more a file has, the bigger it is. For each file, the sequence of bits is very important. If the sequence is changed, the file will be broken. In fact, when we send a file to someone, we just send a clear sequence of bits. So any file is a sequence of bits. And because bits are simple numbers, it is possible to do any mathematical action on them. That is actually what hash function does. And the result of it is a hash sum digest. The task of the hash function is to produce summing until their number becomes equal to a specific value for this specific hash function. For simplicity of perception, the hash sum is always represented in hexadecimal scale of notation. I simplified the algorithm of hash sum computation very much, because the goal of this scheme is to give you only basic understanding of the procedure. Any person on the planet has his unique fingerprint, just like any file has its unique hash sum. Let's talk now about the peer-to-peer data transfer protocol, or so-called peer decentralized network, and what is the difference between it and a usual centralized network. Centralized network is based on using centralized servers and on the client-server applications working. A server is a simple computer which is constantly connected to the internet and has an external IP address that allows anyone to find and to connect to it through the internet. All data are kept on the server, where users can download them. If a file is deleted from a server or a server somehow becomes unavailable, users will not have the access to the information anymore. Furthermore, the downloading speed is limited by the throughput of the server and the load on it. In fact, many of you use the peer network often, because Skype and torrent clients work on this principle. There is no central server in a peer-to-peer network. Necessary files are kept in folders of users' computers, which are opened for common usage, and each computer can be a client to download the information or as a server to give the information. Herewith, a file can be downloaded by fragments from different sources at the same time. It allows to increase the downloading speed and to equally spread the loading on the whole network. There is no losing of an access and possibility to taking data in the network if any computer is broken. The reliability of the peer-to-peer network is directly proportional to the number of computers in the network. The term open source covers a wide range of areas of human activity. It is projects, methods, programs, and technologies which are opened, accessed, and can be developed and used by any person without any payments. But in the context of ENEBRA project, we will look at this term on an example of opened program source code. A person takes completely finished product while using such commercial programs like Windows or Mac OS. This product is impossible to change or to be 100% sure what the program does at some user's actions or by itself. We find out about the data that these programs collect and send only from visible external messages or licensed conditions. But it is impossible for us to confirm or to refute this information because the source code of these programs is not available for us. Unlike other commercial programs, there are program products with open source codes, including Linux and Android. Anyone who is interested can openly take the source code of the program and learn it completely. This fact makes us 100% sure what data collects the program and what actions it does with them. Open source license allows you to use, to modify, and spread such products for free and without a fear to break intellectual property or patent law. What is cryptocurrency wallet and how this works? An unknown person or group of people with a nickname Satoshi Nakamoto has presented to the world a decentralized cryptocurrency called Bitcoin in 2008. 2nd of May 2016, an Australian entrepreneur, Craig Wright, publicly confirmed that he is the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto and the creator of Bitcoin. In fact, Bitcoin is just a small program with open source code, which it is possible and free of charge to download from the internet from the web resource GitHub to completely learn the source code and to install into a computer, a tablet, or a phone. It allows to do direct transactions, money transfer, between people in the internet, avoiding banks. It was called a Bitcoin wallet. What is blockchain? The Bitcoin network uses data transfer protocol peer-to-peer. I showed in detail its work earlier. Actually, sending Bitcoins, a participant of the network just sends a message where is displayed the public key of a sender and a receiver. This message includes the sum of money transfer and is signed by a secret code of the sender. The messages are spreading through the whole Bitcoin network, and each numeral wallet automatically puts it into self-transaction register. The fact that the register has each member of the network significantly increases system safety from losing or falsification of data. Each participant of the network has a clear sequence of all blocks in his wallet that were created during the whole existence of the network Bitcoin. The sequence of blocks is called as a blockchain. Today, there are 702 acting cryptocurrencies that were made by a principle and likeness of Bitcoin. This confirms the viability of the system once again. Strong and weak points of the practical work of Bitcoin became understandable in the last 8 years of practical work. Such factors belong to the strong points. Decentralization is an absence of an administrator and a server manager. It is based on peer-to-peer data transfer protocol. There is a peer-to-peer system of equal users. Blockchain is a reliable crypto protection of the integrity and the chain information sequence. Open source is an open source code that allows to use and modify the program free of charge and without breaking of copyrights, and on 100% to know about all the program's actions. The next serious step of cryptocurrency development can be called Project Ethereum, that was made by Vitalik Buterin in 2014. The project made possible doing deals between absolutely unfamiliar people through including the smart contract app to the block. I want to show for more complete understanding the possibilities of Ethereum, how the created on its basis notary network can work. For now, in any country, all creating notary networks are keeping in a big centralized server in form of a common notary register of a country. Physical access is available only for very limited amount of people. If there is a substitution in the registry, this information would be true for all notaries because there is nothing to compare it with. That is why abuses are possible. The centralized system is very vulnerable to system crashes and natural disasters. It became possible to keep all deals in blockchain by using the smart contract, because blockchain is kept by all network members. In this case, there is no possibility of substitution and loss of data. Vitalik Buterin received World Technology Award Premium for the project Ethereum in 2014, leaving Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, and other famous candidates behind. What is biometry? I would call biometry as a science about the uniqueness of each living person on the Earth, which is based on physiological and behavioral characteristics of a human. The science is bound with our life in real world very much. We are able to distinguish and recognize the people around us because of it. A lot of devices appeared last year that allow to protect the information we have and to organize access systems by help of biometric characteristics. The natural ability of a human to distinguish and to identify other people became the basis of the appearance of such a science as biometry. The word biometry takes its beginning from two Greek words, bios, life, and metreo, to measure. This totality of accurate mathematical algorithms and methods that allow to automatically distinguish, to identify, or to verify people by physiological or behavioral characteristics. Examples of physiological characteristics are DNA structure, fingerprints, arm geometry, face characteristics, iris, retina, geometry of the position of veins on the wrist, hands, and fingers. Behavioral characteristics include features acquired or appeared during the life process, such as dynamics of a signature, features of speech, dynamics of pressing keys, gait features. A human came naked to this world. All that he has is a gift from nature, which is displayed by his uniqueness. His documents, social and religious status were not given to him by nature, but by people. That is why all attacks on biometrics are completely groundless. Just like nuclear energy can be used for destruction or for lighting up a garland on a Christmas tree, the same way biometrics can be used for total control of people or for goods, to prevent a person from a loss of the most important he has, his time, that he wastes senselessly forgetting document in a huge bureaucratic machine. The birth of a human on the earth is a true miracle granted by nature. It really transcends our understanding. At the moment of birth, the vegetus of a newborn baby apprises the whole world that he has arrived on the earth and our earth is ready for his appearance. Nature prepared everything for him: the air to breathe, the mother's milk and warmth to eat and grow. The unbelievable beauty and variety of nature to develop and enjoy, and crystal clear water to drink. But at the time of his birth, nature did not prepare him for race or ethnic background, state or religious affiliation, social or political status. Nature did not assign him to be a slave or to rule the world. All this and many other things were figured out for him by people. Nature has given this little miracle so much positive energy that the exhausted mother, pressing him to her, feels such a powerful wind of kindness and love, in the light of which all her sufferings become dust. Nature has granted the newborn a free inherent uniqueness, which consists not only of fingerprints, appearance, the retina of the eyes, or the composition of DNA. It has gifted him an absolutely unique present to think, feel, and see the world around, thus adding another drop to the ideal balance. Nature's birth of this child creates a clear balance between the amount of resources on our planet and the number of people. The Earth's ecosystem awarded the baby with a 7/billionth part of its resources, which includes not only water and air, but iron ore, gold, oil and gas, granite and diamonds, forests, fields, and deserts. But unlike nature, the human system instantly took away all these gifts from him and handed them over to the state. The human system was certain that nature had made a big mistake and the child would not be able to utilize these gifts correctly. and that the use of these gifts by the child would lead to inevitable catastrophe. Then, as soon as happy parents register their child in government bodies, they declare him to be a citizen of their country. The state, which carefully compensates the gifts taken by nature, gives this happy little man, who has not yet made the first step on this land, a proportional part of the foreign debt. Today, every country in the world has a foreign debt, for which every citizen of this country is responsible. It is easy to calculate, dividing the foreign debt by the number of citizens of the country. We cannot believe in global conspiracy, world order, and the facts from the films, but I could not find any country with a negative balance sheet that has debtors. On March 1st, 2016, Forbes magazine published a list of the richest people on Earth. There are 1,810 people in the list, with $6.48 trillion of the total state. They did not loan anything to anyone. So to whom does humanity owe 70 trillion US dollars? Whoever this mysterious person or group of people is, they loaned this money by help of an organization that is called the International Monetary Fund, and the interest rate is calculated daily. I have calculated the average interest rate using poor information from the internet. It is approximately 3% per year. That is more than $2 trillion. But the interest rate's money is created by no one. If we gather all real money in the world, it will only be the body of the loan itself, and it is only a little part of what we owe. Consequently, we, our children and grandchildren, will never be able to pay back the loan, because it is physically impossible. This is actually why the information about the amount of printed money is classified state secret. If the amount of printed money is not increased permanently, then humanity would not be able to pay the bills, because they will return to their owners in the form of interest rates. But the more the amount of money there is, the lower its price and the bigger is the sum of the debt and calculated interest rate. It is the reason why inflation will enhance in geometric progression, and the value of your work will be permanently depreciated. The existing economic model is already in a deadlock. It is not able to stop this corrupted circle. Even the smallest speed slowing money creation causes economic crisis immediately. That is why the model has outlived itself. It is not necessary to have an economic education to understand this. It is enough to have just a simple calculator. The American Indians of the 19th century had a wise saying, "When the last tree has been cut down, the last river poisoned, the last bird caught, only then will we realize that one cannot eat money." The creator of the Venus Project, Jacques Fresco, introduced in his project an economic model based not on real money, but on real limited resources of our planet. This model received a name, resource-based economy. Project ENEBRA is only a technical instrument for a smooth and painless transition of humanity to a decentralized management system in a resource-based economy, which is able to give the opportunity for realization of self-potential to each person on Earth today, without any collapses and revolutions which bring only suffering, hunger, and destruction. ENEBRA is a free, decentralized network computer program with open source code based on blockchain technology, which allows people to facilitate and significantly reduce the cost of goods exchange, to get rid of debt obligations. It allows reliably protected copyrights, to motivate people on creation and implementation of new technical and methodical innovations, to implement mutual, more effective scientific and researching activity, to make mutual decisions, to participate in the process of lawmaking, to participate in different events, to create, implement, and develop new mass media systems, to take the information about amount, status, and spending of natural resources in real time. One of the strategic goals of Project ENEBRA is to give the opportunity for each person on the planet to achieve the top of Maslow's pyramid self-realization of the goals, skills, self-development. Most people on our planet are stuck on the lower levels of this pyramid. They live only by physical needs. They dream to eat enough and to feed their children, to buy TV and a satellite dish. Daily, they perform hated, slavish, inefficient work which helps them to survive. But not the one they dream about, not the work for the realization of which they came to this world. In my opinion, the impossibility of self-realization is at the core of such problems as depression, alcoholism, and drug addiction. After all, if each person can create something he was born for, his work would be 10 times more efficient, stresses would disappear, his self-evaluation would appear with understanding that this world and people's lives become better due to his work. Project ENEBRA absorbed already working, modified technical solutions united in a unique way, without any violation of intellectual property rights on them. I want you to pay your attention to the aspect of money's origin before we start introducing the first financial part of the project. The existing history of money's origin tells that people started independently to use items like shells, rings, and coins, and then later to make the exchange of goods easier. But this history is not completely logical, because the first level of the pyramid of Maslow tells only about physical needs. Therefore, a person would hardly change his goods, cloth, or weapons which are necessary for his own life on items without a big life value. That is why the value of gods was created at first. Then came the people that were able to talk with gods, and only after the creation of the authority, the opportunity appeared which allowed them to put an absolutely unvalued item, money, into the exchange of goods between usual people. In its essence, the value of fiat money, from the Latin fiat, decree, order, let it be so, was established by a guarantor. This money was issued on behalf of the guarantor, and it is all based on the trust for this guarantor. But trust is very hard to count. The value of money was started to ensure by the very unclear concept of state when democracy came. On bills and coins was begun to portray the dead political leaders due to the frequent change of unscrupulous rulers. Ostensibly, it was done to guarantee the value of money by history of the state itself that is even harder to calculate. We should not bind the value of fiat money with gold reserves of the country until 1971 as well, because only very limited amounts of people could control the reserves of this metal. These people were directly subordinate to the head of state. That is why fiat money costs as much as you believe they should cost. Abolition of the gold standard, increase in the number of financial crises and uncontrolled money issue destroyed people's trust to state currencies. This fact became a basis for appearance of cryptocurrencies. With cryptocurrencies, it is not possible to impact on the clear algorithmic emission, but their cost is equated to the cost of fiat state money. Then it is equal to a strange number, which is called trust. That is the reason why a new unit of account is proposed in the project ENEBRA. It is a resource equivalent ENEBRA, which is not a fiat or a cryptocurrency and has its own mathematical calculation. Its cost does not base on trust, but is mathematically calculated on counting of real resources on our planet. The term resource includes not only mineral resources of the planet such as oil, gas or iron, it includes such resources like drinking water, fish in rivers, seas and oceans, different kinds of trees, and any other type of vegetation, all kinds of animals on Earth, the condition of the ozone layer and ice cover over the poles of our planet. The formula for calculating the resource equivalent was made by mathematician Oksana Zhumik. I did only a technical task for its creation. I will try to explain it as simply as possible. The opportunity to create a consumption and recovery vector for each resource apart and a total resource equivalent as a whole appears by using precise mathematical calculations and a sequence of values for each moment of time, after the bringing to the single calculation system. The cost of the resource equivalent will decrease because resources consumption is much higher than their recreation. How to decrease and then to stop inflation of the resource equivalent will be explained in detail below. For better understanding, I will show opportunities of the formula on such an irreplaceable resource as oil. The calculation was done by using the data of US Central Intelligence Agency, which was openly published in Wikipedia because they maximally embrace all countries. I could not get data from the countries themselves because in many countries, this information is a state secret and is hidden from citizens of these countries. In accordance with the CIA data, there are 1.7 trillion barrels or 239.8 billion tons of oil reserves on the planet. Oil production per day will be on average 12.6 million barrels, taking into account the constant growth. The time to reserves exhaustion is 52 years. Proceeding from the given data, oil will end by 2065. If we count on the basis of all the inhabitants of the planet, the cost of the oil component of one resource equivalent in 2013 was only 10.51 milliliters of oil. Today, this equivalent is much lower. But planet Earth will keep conditions for existence almost 2.5 billion years longer. Understanding the fact that a person can spend no more than 1.5 litre of crude oil, if he wants to use oil till the end of his days, not even talking about his children, allows him to watch in completely another way on useless oil spending by buying and throwing out disposable lighters, although he can use without any harm for himself the reusable ones. Disposable tableware, plastic bags, disposable shaving machines, plastic bottles, kids' toys, which a child breaks and throws out during the way home sometimes. It allows us to look at the necessity of using electric automobiles in completely another way. Unfortunately, market economy forces a human to think from a position of money. It is possible to create money unlimitedly by adding zeros in a computer. But unlike money, natural resources are limited. It is not possible to print resources, and it is probably already impossible to refill many of them. In essence, the resource equivalent, ENEBRA, is not just a unit of exchange which it is possible to use to buy goods and services, to invest or give to charity. It is some kind of a litmus paper that displays the amount and tempos of resource spending, recreation or reduction of flora and fauna. It reacts immediately on any changes in the ecosystem of planet Earth and clearly indicates the source of the problem. Inflation and deflation of ENEBRA will help any person on Earth to feel his own responsibility for our planet before other people and future generations. Maybe people will stop chopping such beautiful trees like Christmas trees or spruce after Christmas or New Year inflations on such resources. Maybe they will plant a tree which they never did before and decorate it each following holiday without damaging nature. After all, scientists say it is still 2.5 billion years to the end of the life cycle of our planet. ENEBRA cannot be loaned, gifted, or passed by inheritance. This nuance might cause conflicting feelings and misunderstandings, but they will disappear when you will watch the presentation till the end. I only say now that it is possible to bequeath any property you have. The project is based on an idea that natural resources of Earth cannot be someone's property. They belong to all living people at this moment, and the resource equivalent is exactly the same as Earth's natural resources. Furthermore, any person is guaranteed to receive his share of resource equivalents during the life from the moment of birth to the moment of death. The born child will live not at the expense of his parents. Like in a human body, new cells do not live at the expense of neighbor cells. He will live at the expense of resources which were granted to him by our planet on the right of his birth. The ENEBRA system includes a similar mechanism of social assistance to restore natural justice. It works today in many countries of the world. A distinctive feature of the project mechanism is every 10 minutes generating algorithmically calculated amounts of resource equivalents ENEBRA, equal to the number of project participants, and using the golden ratio proposed by the financier Eduard Moiseev, divides them into three main parts: human, support of the system's working capacity, and financing of the world's projects. After the death of a person, all his equivalents will return back to the system and proportionately reduce the number of new generated ENEBRA. Thus, due to reducing the output of the ENEBRA itself, it is possible in the future that additional generation of resource equivalents will be algorithmically stopped. Further, I want to talk about the specifics of the digital wallet used in the ENEBRA system. But before that, I would like to touch such a topic as anonymity in the modern world. During a lifetime, information about any person is preserved in public authorities at receiving of any document like a birth certificate, a passport, a driving license. Information about you and your illnesses is stored in separate places in all medical institutions which you visit. Information about your income and savings is kept in banks, in the personnel departments, and at the cashiers of your company. You leave your data in notary offices, embassies when obtaining a visa, or your biometric data in US Embassy or any European country. We use email on centralized servers. We communicate in the centralized social networks where, even if we hide our real name, we openly show all our friends or colleagues who know almost everything about us. Now, it is possible to buy any database in the internet. This list can be continued for a very long time. As a result, a fair and legitimate question arises: from whom and why are we so ineffectively hiding? And why are we spending the most expensive thing a person has, the lifetime, to the constant filling of the same personal data in a huge bureaucratic machine? So let's get back to the specifics of the digital wallet. In the story about the cryptographic purse used in cryptocurrencies, I have already explained the essence of two interrelated digital keys, such as public, which is used as an address, and private, which is used as a digital signature. In the cryptocurrency system, each participant can create an unlimited number of wallets. Unlike cryptographic, in the ENEBRA system, each participant can create only one digital wallet, because his public key is his personal data, such as name, surname, date, and place of birth, as well as the name, place, and date of birth of the father and mother. This data will be passed through the hash function, and its digest will be a public key, which can be transformed for convenience into a QR code. At registering, the system will once check the entire existing database for a match, because the digest must be unique. In its essence, the digest is a number in a decentralized database. The complexity of human biometric data, geometry of face and blood vessels, fingerprints, iris, retina, and so on, is a private key. Thus, sending resource equivalents, a person writes in a public key of a recipient and a sender and sends his biometric sample. Each server of the network will check the balance of the wallet and make verification. If the sample corresponds to the biometrical data of the sender's key, the transaction is confirmed and will be entered into the newly created block. If someone uses someone else's QR code, the biometric samples will not be matched and the transaction will be denied. At such control systems, a person can be calm about probable loss of the QR code because he can always restore it by his original data about himself and his parents. The lost QR code is useless for all other network members. In the case of amnesia, this key can be easily restored by using the identification procedure, about which I've already talked. The only minus of the procedure is the time duration, because servers will have to compare the obtained biometric sample with all available ones in the database. Since children up to a certain age do not have stable biometric parameters, the right to sign payments on their behalf will be given to their parents or caregivers, but it will be limited by the needs of a child. For example, it will not be possible to purchase wine and vodka products or cigarettes by using these resources. It will be possible to spend them on baby food, diapers, payment for medical treatment, education, usage of children's entertainment centers, and so on. I will tell later about how it is possible technically. The use of biometrics in the real world has a serious problem, which consists in using biometric data of a person under the threat of life. But in the project ENEBRA, all users are identified and any transaction can be done only between real people, the network's users. Companies, offshore zones or banks, Everything that does not have human biometric characteristics do not exist in the network ENEBRA. That is the reason why usage of violence is senseless, because all transactions are permanently saved in blocks. The blocks are lined up in a blockchain, and copies of the blockchain are saved on all devices of the system's users. So any member can check who, to whom, and when has transferred resource equivalents. This factor makes most crimes useless and allows for a significantly decreased crime rate in the whole world. Unlike existing decentralized systems, the system ENEBRA saves any entered data in a specific format in a block, not only the data about a transfer of resource equivalent. It makes possible to completely get out of the bureaucracy and to add only acquired personal data during the life process to the data, which were already entered into the systems at registration. Inside the system, each person makes a decision by himself. He decides which data to open for public usage and which to keep in an encrypted state. A similar system of preservation of personal data has already been developed and successfully applied in Lithuania for 10 years. The only difference is that it is decentralized. Anticipating the question of professionals about the size of one block, I would like to tell that a blockchain itself keeps only hash sums of recorded data, and the data are decentralized, stored on the servers of system users. The purpose of this video presentation is to maximally convey the essence of the project to non-IT related people. For this reason, I omit and simplify a lot of technical aspects. So, in the first approximation, the settlement system of Project ENEBRA is a fundamentally modified Bitcoin system, where the public key is opened personal data of a person. This solves such a disadvantage of the Bitcoin system like imaginary full anonymity supports the development of shady and criminal transactions from the sale of drugs, weapons, contract killings, etc. The private key is personal biometric characteristics that a person has from his birth to the death. Thus, in this way, it solves one more significant disadvantage of Bitcoin, like the possibility of theft or loss of Bitcoin as own funds and as a part of resource of the entire Bitcoin economy, and also the impossibility to determine the amount of lost funds. The symbiosis of blocking and biometric technology allows us to accomplish the second goal of the project. It allows us to remove the dependence of people from the existing financial system. It makes impossible the processes of fiat inflation, unaccounted use of money, and removes the possibility of any financial crises. The system really completely excludes the possibility of a physical loss of the resource equivalents because people are not able to lose all their biometric data at the same time. The same way is solved the goal of the project about deleting of the bureaucratic structure, which takes a lot of time and money from almost every inhabitant of the earth. Despite the apparent complexity, the use of the computational system of ENEBRA is not more difficult than usage of a mobile phone, because all processes are completely automatized. When using the ENEBRA calculation system, a system of taxation becomes completely meaningless, because each person receives his share of resource equivalents, despite his age and efficiency, which is sufficient for satisfying physical needs, and the share, financing of world projects, takes on itself the creation of large-scale mutual projects. I will talk about it later. In the above-mentioned film Thrive, methods of containment of technical and scientific progress, suppression of scientific and technical discoveries that make obstacles for enrichment of dominant clans and corporations were uncovered very well by Foster Gamble. In addition, it can be said that nowadays in the world, such a direction as a startup is intensively developed. Many of young and creative developers share their technical projects on open sites in the internet. The most interesting, supported by the internet community and corporations projects, become property of large corporations in the end. They get the rights for the project by investing more than 50% of the financial resources, which were gathered by all other network members, or just by stealing the idea of a project and changing it a little bit. After the creation of an own project, the older generation of engineers developers try to patent their inventions and to find investors for its implementation. But at the end, they lose it or get caught by tenacious paws of patent trolls, or receive the minimum fee for their long-term work in a form of fiat money, which is immediately eaten by inflation. And their work brings enrichment only for the corporations. In the ENEBRA project, each member of the network is interested to absolutely openly and safely publish his invention, scientific development, methods of teaching or treatment, etc., since all these data will be recorded in a new created block. The block will be added to blockchain that does not allow changing of blocks' places. Thereby, copyright for this creation is set forever by the connection with biometric data of the author. Once the project or technology is added to blockchain, it becomes available to all members of the network ENEBRA. If the status of the project is completed, it is immediately placed in the system for implementation to end users. If the status of the project is open rework, each person can take part in its rework, and if his refinements improve any aspect of this project and are accepted by the network participants, this person automatically becomes a co-author of the project. The efficiency of the proposed system is several times higher than the existing one. Since the inventor initially adds his invention into the blockchain, which does not let to change or exchange the place of blocks, and it is maintained by all network members. It establishes its copyright forever, that is inextricably linked to his biometric data, which is not possible to be counterfeited or lose. Thus, the goal of the project about protection of intellectual property is achieved 100%. Furthermore, it is not necessary for the author to pay for this procedure. In the existing system, the author of the invention is forced to collect a huge number of documents, to go through a mass of instances, to bear financial costs, which he is not always able to pay for. But the most important is he loses a lot of precious time of his life for bureaucracy in the form of obtaining a patent or for investment searching, but not for improving or creation of new inventions, which could improve life quality of each person on our planet. Furthermore, the received patent is recognized only by the state that gave it. In today's world, there is no such patent, which would guarantee the protection of copyright in all existing countries. The tempos of technological progress in our time are so big that the emerging technology becomes obsolete in a year, but to obtain a patent in Britain, the inventor must spend about 2 years in average. For this reason, the existing copyright protection system is a powerful brake on the path of technological progress of mankind. The second positive aspect is that the invention immediately becomes fully accessible to all network members, which makes it completely meaningless to persecute the author of the invention. Thus, the following goal of the ENEBRA project is achieved. The goal is to make it completely useless to persecute scientists and scientific projects that interfere with monopolization by large corporations and leading clans. The possibility of mutual reworking allows to achieve one more important goal of the project: to stop destructive competition that unlimitedly consumes natural and human resources of our planet. Imagine the tempos and quality of technical progress if scientists and engineers who work in scattered laboratories around the world trying to create the same product in our competitive systems will sit at the same table, open their achievements, and together start to create the stuff that they were hiding from each other in the hope of profitably selling it in the future. After all, There are hundreds of thousands of such scientists. Try to imagine what all these people could do without such deterrent factors like lack of finance, cultural and human ignorance, in which some people still manage to self-realize and accomplish their mission, the reason why they came in this world. And now imagine that such a progress is possible in all directions of mankind's development. I want to tell you that it is hard to imagine, even for me, the author of the project ENEBRA, all these volumes, opportunities and rates of development. The voting system, in conjunction with the real cost of the resource equivalent, allows people to make informed joint decisions based on a clear understanding of the number of limited resources of the planet and rationality of their costs for the voting project. And the system of remuneration of authors, co-authors and executors of projects allows to solve an unsolvable problem of market economy and one of the goals of the project. Forever to stop overproduction and to make unnecessary planned obsolescence that uselessly spends natural resources and pollutes our planet. As creators and producers, we'll be maximally motivated to create things with the highest possible quality and duration of work, because the longer a device works that is created by them, the longer they can receive redistributed resource equivalents. The goal of each new project is to improve the life quality of the participants of the system. In the ENEBRA system, each person who could create a good for another person, a group of people, or for all participants of the system, improves his own life quality on account of 50% goods created by him directly proportional to the number of people who get benefits from his creation and increase their life quality at the same time. Unlike the existing reality, each project participant is interested in increasing the amount of rich people in the system, because his own life quality will increase as well. Together with the resource equivalent, this system will allow to solve the very first goal of the project. At the expense of the existing intellectual and natural resources of the planet, to ensure the maximum possible subsistence level for each person from his birth to the moment of death. In connection with this fact, people will no longer be needed in imagined workplaces because all processes will be maximally automated to maximally unload the person from routine and ineffective work, to give him an opportunity to develop as much as possible and to self-actualize, which means to do something for what he came into this world to do, to develop his genius for the benefit of our entire planet. In the technical and historical aspect, the project ENEBRA, block after block, will create the most complete encyclopedia of knowledge and technology of all mankind, and all of us will be an owner of its copy. According to the presented scheme, plant growing and food production technologies will be opened and further developed. The technologies will allow us to escape from genome modification and using of pesticides and to reduce the level of disease among people and the pollution of the environment by that. Technologies for obtaining water from condensate with a daily temperature change, or the project by Samuel Krugliak that allows to receive not only clean energy but clean water as well. These projects solve the problem of a lack of drinking water, even in those areas of the earth where there is no other sources. Technologies of growing organs from stem cells, which will allow to save thousands of lives who wait in a queue for a transplant, and to receive grown steak for fans of meat products without killing any animals. Researching space programs that allow in real time to receive data about the universe, to assess the state of the Earth's surface and glaciers, to control deforestation and reforestation, fish catching, etc. Project ENEBRA is no different from the projects created within the system. Anyone can at any time offer his own version of percentage distribution of shares, optimization of the application's code, terms and rules of tenders, more convenient interface, using of higher speed data transfer protocols to become a co-author of the project, if his idea will be confirmed by tests and supported by the majority of network participants. You should refer to Project ENEBRA not as a dogma, but as an idea with a ready-made prototype. Both can and should be improved by you because you doubtless know some understandable for you aspects better than me, the aspects of which are a part of your life. This project is specifically designed so flexible that it allows us to change any part of it up to the concept and title to avoid further stratification of society, to not provoke creation of similar projects, because the Earth is only one, and we only agree among each other and together to build the prosperity that we dream about. In our time, there is no ideal protection, which allows 100% to protect the system from hacking or penetration. Special services, intelligence services of various states do hackings in the internet or on a local network. The services consist of ordinary people who have received special training or so-called cybercriminals, or simply to say hackers. If you remove the mask from such a person, you will not see a terrible villain with an axe or a pistol. Under this mask is the face of an intellectually developed and intelligent person. He spent a lot of time on self-study and self-improvement. He thoroughly studied various network protocols and technologies, learned the programming languages, functional functioning of modern devices and communication. There is Anonymous, a movement in the world that is against harassment and surveillance in the internet. Thanks to the diligence and intelligence of these people, the internet is still a place of free communication between millions of ordinary people, and exactly because of that, you can watch this presentation now. In the ENEBRA system, there is a real motivation for such people, a lot of options for development and use of their potential. After all, if a person has discovered a systemic vulnerability that was not noticed by its creator, then this person, in fact, did a good. Thus, any person who identified a vulnerability of the project or individual applications of the system automatically becomes its co-author and begins to receive his percentage of benefits until this system is used and it is relevant. In such a way, another goal of Project ENEBRA is solved: to make allies from today's cybercriminals and to motivate them to work to improve the quality of information protection. Lawmaking is a very important and interesting part of the ENEBRA project that has enormous potential and allows to solve almost all contradictions which exist in the current legal systems. After registration in the system ENEBRA, a person automatically regains the status of a citizen of the Earth that was gifted by nature at the time of his birth. The status of a citizen of the Earth is fixed in the basic law in the system ENEBRA, the Constitution of the Earth. This is the list of absolutely understandable rules, which do not cause contradictions among all people on Earth and inseparably linked with the laws of nature. The Constitution is based on the revised articles from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All articles of the Constitution can be changed at any time, reworked, improved, added or deleted by any member of the Project ENEBRA, if these modifications are justified and accepted by the majority of participants in the system by open voting. In essence, the ENEBRA project is the state system of the planet Earth, where the right of management is given to each of its citizens on absolutely equal terms. Also, the system allows a lot to increase the efficiency of the current presidents. Since they are basically guarantors of the Constitution, they have to watch on compliance with the adopted laws that they should not violate the constitutional rights of the citizens. In the ENEBRA system, 7 billion people will watch on it instead of 200 presidents. Because of that, the possibility of adopting an unconstitutional law is practically impossible. Any member of the system will be able to draw people's attention in the form of an innovation created by him, if he sees violations in the system of legislation, and if during the voting people really consider this a violation, a law or other normative act will be stopped, and the person who noticed the violation will be rewarded with resource equivalents from the Fund of Financing of World Projects in a predetermined amount accepted by the community. The system makes revolutions, protests, and strikes completely unnecessary. Because if you have an idea, just describe it and explain all its advantages. Perhaps people will be able to diversify and improve it. And you will not lose your time, but improve the world in which we live and where our descendants will gratefully live. In addition to human and scientific resources, the destructive waste of natural resources will be stopped. In the transitional period, in case of a refusal to adopt laws by governments coming from the majority of citizens of this country, will appear a fair question. Whose interests are protected by such governments? And even in this case, protests and revolutions are not necessary. After all, in the vast majority of countries in the world, there are democratic elections now, and in this election, people will be elected not from the list proposed by the government, but citizens of this country who proved in practice, not by words, their competence by creating real bills in the ENEBRA system, which will be supported not only by citizens of this country, but by people from the whole world. If necessary, a temporary ENEBRA party can be created. Participants in this party in different countries will become only those citizens of these countries who participate in writing real laws that improve the quality of life of people and the planet on the whole, and these laws were approved by the majority of the network participants. The main purpose of this temporary party will be the implementation of a single legislation approved by the majority of the participants of the ENEBRA system in all countries of the world. The need for the party will disappear, and it will self-destruct after the overwhelming majority of countries adopt these laws. To open a huge amount of information, which today is classified as secret, for every person on our planet. To make the right decision, a person needs the maximum amount of accurate information. But unfortunately, in modern management system, there are such concepts as state secrets. I had to use the data of the US Central Intelligence Agency in order to show you the amount and consumption of oil on the planet. But I could not estimate how much they are accurate and from what sources they were obtained, because in the overwhelming majority of countries, the information about available resources is a state secret and is closed to ordinary people. We cannot directly receive data from near-Earth orbit, despite the satellites working there are created by our taxes and our hands. The numbers of daily generated money are hidden from us, although we exchange our labor for them. Our politicians do closed meetings, where they make hidden decisions with an allegedly noble purpose in the name of national security. We even vote hiding our data that allows them to easily falsify the results of elections, although themselves they vote quite openly. One of the first and most important laws in the ENEBRA system will be the discovery of all the secret data, so that we will be able to adequately make the most informed decisions for the benefit of all mankind. Using the possibilities of the law-making system allows us to achieve the following project objectives: to give the opportunity for any person on Earth to participate in the process of lawmaking at the state level as well as globally. The ENEBRA system allows each person, regardless of age and location, to engage in any kind of activity that a person has chosen for him or herself. All the directions of activity exist in human society are always open to him or her. In the existing management system, you delegate the right to adopt and ratify sectoral decisions to the existing government regardless of your desire and knowledge that fundamentally wrong, because limited number of government members physically cannot be professionals in all areas of life and the activity of human society. In addition, a professional is a person who daily works and practically develops himself in a certain domain, and governments mostly resort to a peer review of researchers who work in different institutions and have only theoretical knowledge, which not always corresponds to practical needs. For this reason, many sectoral decisions and laws do not correspond to the real needs of these industries, contain a lot of contradictions, and thereby inhibit their development. A mechanism was created in the ENEBRA system that allows each person to delegate the right to make industry decisions to people whom this person considers as professionals, and to leave those branches for self-decision-making where the person is an expert himself. The data about the delegation of the right to make a decision are entered into the unit that is being created at that moment. When the delegate makes decisions in his field, then his decision automatically goes to ratification to the person who gave him the right to make decisions. Only after ratification, the decision gets the status of voted, and the delegate raises his rating at the same time. The higher the rating, the greater the impact a person receives at decision-making in his professional branch. To my opinion, this principle gives freedom of creativity to the person delegating his vote as well as to the delegate who receives a vote of confidence. At the same time, there is still the mutual responsibility of both to each other and to the rest of the members of the system for each concrete decision. At any time, each member of the system has the right to withdraw his delegated voice or to start making independent decisions in this branch, or to delegate it to another member, whose opinion is more in line with the opinion of the delegating person, and, as it was said above, is responsible for the making, ratification, of each decision. Thus, the making of industrial decisions will be made professionally and maximally contribute to the development of the industries themselves, and older people will be able to delegate their rights to their children and grandchildren, the persons to whom they trust, but not governments for which they did not even vote sometimes. Justice is one of the oldest elements of the current management system. It is based on legislation lobbied by the dominant clans and people with power. Each judge has the opportunity to use his official position, gaps and contradictions that exist in the legislation of any country. Consequently, it makes the opportunity of corruption, bribery, and oppression on judges by the ruling structures. Moreover, the process of justice sometimes is delayed for years, sometimes carrying huge losses of funds and time with itself. Corruption is an abuse of power. There are such roots of corruption as selectivity of legislation, inequality of citizens before the law, legalized privileges and status for individuals. Corruption is possible only with a centralized control system. In the Middle Ages, there was the right of the first night, when a feudal lord was entitled to the first night with the bride of a peasant. If a peasant had a similar right to the bride of a feudal lord, such a right, a priori, would never have been accepted. In the modern world, due to anti-terrorist legislation, special services of various states have a legal right of access to the study of personal correspondence and wiretapping of ordinary citizens. If the law were not selective, ordinary citizens would have the same legal access to personal correspondence and telephone conversations of employees of special services, presidents, and government officials. But in this case, such legislation would not have been adopted by any government. The root of this problem was deleted in the ENEBRA system, because each person on equal rights has the right of legislative, executive, and judicial power. In this regard, the legislation itself will be minimized to clearly understandable rules of life and responsibility for their violation equal for any person. Property claims are impossible because there is no common property. All available property will be acquired on the basis of a smart contract with a specific person who will be the absolute owner of this property. The crime rate will be much lower than today in the most prosperous countries like Norway, Iceland, or Denmark, because most of crimes are done by people staying on the lowest level of the Maslow pyramid, when a very poor person is forced to choose between physical survival and crime. And all moral principles lose their priority when it is the question of life and death. The percentage of crimes committed by people with prosperity will also decrease in many times, because in the modern world, they occur through an understanding of impunity and 100% of the opportunity to justify themselves through relationships and money. Unintentional crimes will also be reduced to minimum due to rapid technical progress, and financial crimes or claims about non-payment of elements in the ENEBRA system are simply impossible, since children from the first moment of their lives begin to receive their resource equivalents. I've already talked in detail about this earlier. After you have read all the materials of the information section and have firmly decided to become a participant of the project, you have to complete the registration process. To do this, you need to click on the registration under the search box. Before starting the registration, I strongly recommend you to read the rules of the web resource in the registration form that appears, because there are all points of the forms for filling described in detail. After clicking on the question mark, you will receive comprehensive information about the requirements to the biometric photo you upload, because if your photo will not satisfy described requirements, you cannot successfully complete the registration process. In the presentation of the project, I have already talked about the need for servers for storage of blockchain, innovations and information created by project participants. Each project participant can have only one server registered for him. A server is a computer that is always on, connected to the internet, and having a white IP address. That means it has direct access from the global internet. A participant installs on this computer the open source client software with installation instruction, which it is possible to download for free from the page of the ENEBRA project on GitHub. The technology of decentralized storage and distribution of information already exists. You can find it on the website of the project Storj. It is a project with open source code, which is supported by Vitalik Buterin, the founder of the project Ethereum. The system of referrals is proposed, developed and calculated by Mikhail Kryukov, and is designed to achieve several goals. The first is for registration in the system, you need a referral link from the person who invited you. This fact allows to significantly resist the creation of bots, non-existent people, since each referral bears personal responsibility for those whom he invited. The second goal is to motivate people to spread the information about the ENEBRA project. The project itself is replete with modern technologies and is creative enough. That is why it is complex to some extent for a rapid understanding, and its level of efficiency will increase in proportion to the increase in the number of participants. If a person is engaged in its dissemination independently, how he does it, personal communication, an article in a journal or a newspaper, a public speech, a creation of a video or a blog on the internet, the person spends his time that he would spend on his personal interests, spend it with people close to him or his children. And as time is the most precious thing a person has, it should be fairly compensated. I have already touched the theme about the creation of the ENEBRA Foundation in the story about the framework program Horizon 2020. There are quite a lot of similar programs in terms of their scale and level of assets, which are equal to Horizon 2020. Only in Europe, there are not less than 4 such programs, not less than 2 on the American continent, and not less than 1 in the Asian part of our planet. Almost every state and even a city has the same, similar, smaller programs and budgetary, monetary funds for their implementation. But all these organizations live and work within the frameworks of the legislation of specific countries where they physically do their activities, and in most cases, they can work only with legal entities, officially formalized organizations and enterprises. There are no organizations and businesses in the ENEBRA project. It consists only of people who have their own biometric parameters. Therefore, it is needed a certain instrument to be able to interact and obtain the necessary assets. An instrument which would allow, without limiting the actions of the project, formally interact with existing structures for the transition period, and at the same time enabling each participant in the project to manage and fully control the results of his activities. It is exactly such an instrument that the ENEBRA Foundation should become. It is very difficult to create a single solution for all countries, because each country has its own specific legislation. Therefore, I will only talk about the general principles on which this tool will be based. First of all, anyone can create his own innovation and propose in it a package of documents developed by him for the opening of such a fund in his country. The fund must be a non-profit enterprise to minimize tax deductions as much as possible. The composition of the founders and employees of the fund in each individual country must not be less than 10 people and to consist of only 100% of the confirmed participants of the ENEBRA project, with completely opened personal data. A separate vote must be done for each candidate, and he will be considered as accepted if it is approved by the majority of citizens of that country from the project participants in the date of voting. The bank in whose accounts will be located funds of the foundation should be also approved by the majority of the project participants in this particular country, and to be able to make an opened interactive web page where all incomes and withdrawals from the fund's accounts will be displayed in real time. Each withdrawal of funds must be bound to a specific decision taken by project participants in the framework of the adopted action plan and the pre-adopted budget. In fact, the role of the fund's employees is a clear implementation of the decisions made by the network participants through an open voting. Before sending funds to implementation of specific projects, the participants of the system have to finalize and approve the action plan about creation and transition of mankind to the finished system ENEBRA. I will explain it in more detail further. After approval of the plan, we need to develop and adopt the budget. After that, we will have a full and clear understanding on what projects the fund's financial resources will be spent and in which proportions. All income and expenditure of funds will be added into the blockchain every 10 minutes, so any person will be able to openly and at any time receive the information about the status of the accounts of the fund, on what decisions and on which tenders they were spent. All funds that correspond to the requirements described above will be entered into the informational part of the site and become available for review to everyone. Money on the fund's accounts will appear through previously showed programs and private donations. Fiat money will rapidly lose its value during the development of the project, not only due to the vicious mechanism of their emission, but also by reducing people's belief in their value, and this is their foundation. Therefore, those who will spend it on technology and projects in time, which are necessary for the development of mankind, they be in bigger profit after the ending of the transition. Everything that will be purchased by the fund will be the property of people who invested their own funds in it, in proportion to the amount paid. It becomes completely open to all people on Earth. For example, to accelerate the completion of work on the project, it may be necessary to have ready technologies and developments over which commercial companies have worked for decades and have patent rights on them. If these technologies and patent rights will be redeemed by funds of the Foundation, they will be open in the network for using by all people. You should treat this social network as nothing more than an innovation proposed by me. You can always make your own improvements and change any part of it. To do this, use the revision of the technical task to the web resource of the project ENEBRA openly hosted on GitHub. There you can upload all initial graphics files and program code for their completion and correction. After this, present your ideas to the vote of the project participants in the form of an innovation you created. The social network will constantly evolve and improve until the moment when it will be replaced by the developed decentralized application, ENEBRA. All the sources are available for study and rework on the project page on the GitHub web resource. So if you have experience of creating social networks or some parts of it, do not hesitate and join to the development. Especially in contrast to existing social networks, where we only know the names of their original authors or existing owners, everything you do in this development will be added with your personal data into the blockchain forever, and you will be inscribed forever in history as a co-author of this world project. It is not necessary to invest free financial resources in the fund ENEBRA by people who have them and who want to speed up the process of the project implementation. You can independently pay for work to a programmer, a designer, or a translator whom you know personally and to whom you trust, who lives close to your location. Next, to add from your name the code created by him, design or translation, so in case of payment for the results of their labor, it will become your property. Thus you will become a co-author of this project and become included into the blockchain as its full-fledged co-author. At this stage, our task is reworking and testing the project mechanism itself and maximal dissemination of the information among the people of our planet. By the connection hundreds of millions of people, we will be able to cope with the most difficult tasks as soon as possible and move as quickly as possible to the new management system that we created.